All right, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Akeem, and welcome to this blog. Here to finish off my blogs for the first round of 2018 NFL Draft, and I'm going to talk about picks numbers 21 through 32 to wrap things up. Starting at pick number 21, belonging to the Cincinnati Bengals. This team went 7-9 last season, and Andy Dalton's looking to rebuild this team to get back into playoff contention. Now, I do like the pickup of Cordy Glenn, the trade that they had to get to acquire Cordy Glenn. I think this is going to be a good pickup, but he needs to stay healthy and take better care of himself on the field. Stay away from injuries. If he stays away from injuries, I think he will be very effective to help out the ground game of the Bengals, who averaged just 3.6 yards per carry. They need to do better at that particular area, and I think they're going to address more with the offensive line with their first round selection. And the player that I actually have in mind is James Daniels, coming out of Iowa. I think this is a great center. He could also play the guard position, either or, but this will definitely upgrade the offensive line and build more depth just to help out the ground attack. Let's not forget that Andre Smith is actually no longer with the team, so this is going to be a big pickup for them to try to address more on the offensive line with Cordy Glenn and picking up another interior offensive lineman to help out the ground attack and even build more protection for Andy Dalton. So I'm going to have to go with James Daniels, coming out of Iowa, with this pick. Next up at pick number 22 goes to the Buffalo Bills. Now, this is the second first-round pick for this year's draft. I had them going with Josh Allen, coming out of Wyoming, with their 12th overall pick. I think this is going to be another offensive player that they need to pick up for this selection, particularly at the wide receiver position. I do not have too much faith on Kelvin Benjamin. I believe that he could be a 1,000-yard receiver. He just needs to stay healthy and catch the football. He needs to do a better job with his hands. And let's have high hopes on Zay Jones, but they still need a lot more depth at the receiver position. And the man that I actually still have available is Alabama's Calvin Ridley. Now, in most people's draft boards, they actually have Ridley as the number one wide receiver entering this year's draft. I went with Cortland Sutton, coming from out of SMU, to go with the Dallas Cowboys as the first wide receiver picked for this year's draft, making Calvin Ridley still available, and this will definitely help out the receiving core a lot for the Bills and have a good target for the quarterback to throw to, unless it's between Adrian McCarron or the new upcoming rookie quarterback. At pick number 23, this belongs to the New England Patriots, the AFC champions. The team went 13-3 last season, and I think they need to fill it in the cornerback position because Malcolm Butler is now a Tennessee Titan. He signed a big-time contract, I believe over $60 million, just barely over, but I think this is going to be a big fill-in that they have to fill in, a big fill-in that the Patriots have to take care of, and I think they're going to address the cornerback position first, and I have to go with Mike Hughes, coming out of Central Florida. This kid has a pretty good size at 5'10", 196 pounds, and he has great cover skills, and I think this will be a good disciplined player that Bill Belichick can use for the next upcoming seasons. Next up at pick number 24, belonging to the Carolina Panthers. Now, this team went 11-5 last season, and Cam Newton can use more help at the offensive line. But I think they're going to go defense with their first pick, particularly at the cornerback position. And the guy that I have them going with is Josh Jackson, coming out of Iowa. He's coming off an all-Big Ten performance season. I believe he had 8 interceptions last season, or 8 pass breakups. But I think this is going to be a great player for the defense and Ron Rivera to use as well. I think he's a tremendous athlete. Good footwork that I saw as far as his workouts. Now, he's a little bit undersized, but I think with his skill, it would replace the size situation that some people are concerned about, like myself. But I still think he's a great athlete who is well-deserved a first-round pick. At pick number 24, this belongs to the Tennessee Titans. Now, I did like the pickup of Malcolm Butler. This was a great addition on the defensive unit, but they do need some help at the linebacker position because A.V. Williamson actually departed from the team, and I think they need to address that linebacker. They can also use a defensive lineman as well, a good edge to add more depth with Brian Orakpo and Derek Morgan, and they can also use an offensive guard as well, but I think they're going to go with linebacker in this one, and I still have Rashaan Evans, the linebacker from Alabama, still available for this pick. I think they should go with him. He's a great athlete, a good leader in the defensive unit, along with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Next up at pick number 24, this pick belongs to the Atlanta Falcons. This team went 10-6 last season, and two particular areas that I have been debating on whether they should go with the first round. It's either at wide receiver or defensive tackle. Start with the receiver position. Without Julio Jones, they don't really have any receivers who can step it up. Now, I did like a little bit of play from Mohamed Sanu, but I don't really see him as a solid number 2. They could use a better number 2, Christian Kirk for Texas A&M, who I've been thinking about, but they also can use a defensive tackle to fill in the void of Dontari Poe. I think they're going to go with defense in this one, and I have them going with Maurice Hurst coming out of Michigan. He was an all-Big Ten performer, great interior lineman, and I think he's a good run stopper to help out the ground defense. I think this will be a great addition for the Falcons organization on the defensive side. Sticking with the NFC South Division, the New Orleans Saints control the 27th pick of this year's draft. They went 11-5 last season and making it to the playoffs. Now, this is a debate between wide receiver, an edge rusher, and a tight end for this pick. Now, I mentioned wide receiver first, even though they do have Michael Thomas, but he needs a running mate. They need a good pass-catching receiver. And now, as far as the defensive unit, they could use a better players in the secondary, but also particularly as a rush end position. But I think they're going to go with tight end this one in the receiving type tight end to get back to what we seen when Jimmy Graham did when he was a Saint. I think they need a good receiving tight end. Coby Fleener has not been playing up to par. He hasn't really been much of a useful player for Drew Brees to throw to, and I think they need a good receiving tight end. And the guy that I have them going with, it's a surprise for most people, and Dallas Goedert out of South Dakota State. This kid is coming off of back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He had a couple of great years, and he has great hands, good route running ability, and he would definitely be a great competition for Coby Fleener to battle between the two tight ends for this upcoming season. He would be a great use for Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees can find but now the Saints can also look for a replacement for Drew Brees because he is up there in age, but I still think he has at least 2 good seasons left in the tank, so they should go tight end first, and I believe that Goedert from South Dakota State is their guy. Next up at pick number 24, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They made it to the playoffs and losing at home to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was a tough loss. This team went 13-3 in the regular season. Now, they did put the franchise tag on Le'Veon Bell, but he's looking for a big long-term contract. Can't blame him. He is the best running back in the league, but they could look for a running back in this year's draft, but they still have James Conner, who I believe is a pretty good backup. Now, they could also look in filling the void at linebacker and safety, particularly at the outside linebacker position, because Ryan Shazier, we all know about his injury, so they need to find a replacement for Ryan Shazier, who was a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker. The player that I am looking at was Rashaan Evans, but I had him going to the Tennessee Titans, so I think they're going to address the safety position, and I think they should go with Evans' teammate and Ronnie Harrison from Alabama. Alabama was stacked with great defensive players, and Ronnie Harrison was one of them, along with Rashaan Evans, Deron Payne, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, the Jim Thorpe Award winner. Now, Fitzpatrick was the better player overall between him and Harrison, but let's not leave out Harrison. Harrison is still a good player who deserves to be a first-round selection for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The team went to the AFC Championship and barely missing the Super Bowl. This was a great young up-and-coming team. Hopefully they can keep things going and continue that confidence. I did like the addition of Calais Campbell and the defensive unit. He had showed strong leadership skills and leadership presence on the field, and that is actually one of the key things on why the Jacksonville Jaguars were so successful this year, was because of the play of Calais Campbell and his leadership skills to uplift the defense, who was one of the top defenses overall in the National Football League. Now, one area that they can look at is at the linebacker position, because the retirement of Paul Posnelski, they could definitely look for a tight end, and they can a linebacker, and they can also look for more linemen, a good right tackle they could look at. Colton Miller or Connor Williams are players that they can be looking at for this particular selection. But they can also go with the tight end with this pick, even though they did sign Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Now, this is going to be a tough break for me. For me with this selection, they can either go with a tight end or an offensive lineman, and I think they're going to go with offensive lineman because they signed Blake Bortles to an extension. So I think they're going to go with Colton Miller coming out of UCLA. I think he's a good offensive tackle to work opposite of Andrew Newell. Next up, the 30th pick. This belongs to the Minnesota Vikings. The team went 13-3. Great season led by quarterback Case Keenum. Now he is no longer with the team, but they picked up a better quarterback in Kirk Cousins. I think this was a great pickup, even though I do think he's paid a little bit too much. But hey, that's just my opinion. I believe that quarterbacks are getting paid a little bit too much for the most recent seasons. Each year in the NFL, they've been raising out the salary cap, and they've been giving most of the money to the quarterbacks. Yes, I understand that the leaders of the team, but they could actually spread the wealth a little bit more. I don't think that he's worth $30 million a year. That's just my personal opinion. But I understand the signing, and it is still a big signing. Now, they can use some help with the offensive line to help protect and build more insurance for the quarterback, as well as help out the ground attack with the return of Dalvin Cook. I think he's going to be due for a big season. And I think they're going to go with the offensive line in this pick. And I have Isaiah Wynn, the guard coming out of Georgia, with this selection to help out the ground attack. And let's not forget that Dalvin Cook is an excellent receiver outside of the backfield. He definitely displayed those skills this past season. But I have them addressing more with the offensive line with this pick, but they could also go with a cornerback to replace 39-year-old Terrence Newman, who is hitting free agency. Now, with the 31st pick, this one belongs back to the New England Patriots, the second first-round pick of this year's draft. I don't know how they're doing this, but this is just an amazing organization. I have no clue how they're getting 2 first-round picks in the first round in recent drafts that we've been seeing. I just don't believe it. But hey, they got the second first-round pick, and they could still. I mentioned they had them going with a cornerback with their first pick. They could go with a linebacker or a safety with this selection, but they need to address the offensive tackle position as well, because Nate Solder is no longer with the team. I think Belichick is going to go with Connor Williams, my guy from the Texas Longhorns. I think he's more of a second-round pick, but the Patriots do need to get an offensive tackle. And as far as the depth at offensive tackle, I'm not really liking this class too much along with the quarterbacks for this year's draft class. But I think they need to pick their best guy available, and that is Connor Williams, so they need to reach out for him, even though I believe that Williams is more of a second-round pick. That's just my personal opinion, my fellow Longhorn, and I do wish him the best of luck. Lastly, the last pick of the first round belongs to the NFL champion, Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. All right, now they re-signed Nigel Bradham at linebacker, but Jordan Hicks, he's been dealing with a lot of injuries, so they're looking to try to fill in more void at linebacker. They can also use a running back because LeGarrette Blount is no longer with the team already. But I do have high hopes with Corey Clement as a good as a good half of a tandem. But a lot of people actually see him as a third down or goal line type back, with a compliments of Ajayi. I think they're going to go with running back with this one because of what I have been hearing. And I think that Sony Michel from Georgia is the perfect fit. He's an unselfish player. He worked well with as a tandem back with Nick Chubb. He's a great teammate, and he's a strong inside runner. I like him a lot, and I think that the Eagles are going to go with him to address the running back position. They could also look for a stud wide receiver, but they did sign Mike Wallace from the Baltimore Ravens. Also, more depth at the offensive line, but I think they're going to go running back with this one to complement both Jay Ajayi and Corey Clemente. I believe Clemente is going to be used more of a third down back. So I think they're going to go with an unselfish player in Sony Michel coming out of Georgia. So that wraps things up with the first round of my mock draft for this year's draft. The next time I'm going to catch you guys will be after the draft, in which I will give you my grades for each team for their selections of this year's draft. Thank you for watching today's vlogs. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.